So yes, now that you have heard from leading experts from the global south with huge amounts of experience of international collaboration, we thought it was appropriate to bring a white European male to tell you all about international collaboration. But in all seriousness, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to share my perspective and perhaps round off this conversation about international collaborations from the perspective of someone who is predominantly based in high-income countries, but does a huge amount of, spends a huge amount of his time and work in a low and middle-income country setting. I am going to be talking about kind of the do's and perhaps don'ts, maybe making some controversial statements about the types of people that I don't think should be doing international collaboration, as well as some of the people who should, and the principles that should guide that. It's a different kind of talk for myself and to the others. It's completely based on my experiences. I've co-created this presentation with my work wife, Arisha Hussaini, who's based in Pakistan, who's also an early career researcher. It's all based on my delusions and my experiences, so please do take it with a pinch of salt. To get started on this conversation, can you please put your hand up if you have worked in international collaborations or with international partners, so beyond Ireland and the UK? It'll be interesting to see if some of the things that I talk about resonate with you or not, and who is interested in continuing to do so or to start working internationally. Grant. So, because it is a personal talk, a little bit of background of who I am and what qualifies me to talk about any kind of international collaboration. I come from Estonia and Finland, which are beautiful countries known for sauna, vodka, reindeer, and beautiful lakes and midnight summers where the sun doesn't set. But also they are environments which have really informed my worldview as kind of socialist countries who put a lot of emphasis on equity and very flat hierarchies. That will become evident why I say that in a moment. These are all of the countries where I have held a legal address, including Sri Lanka there at the bottom. These are all the countries that I have visited in my lifetime, and the ones in yellow are the ones that I have visited in the past 12 months. These are the countries that I want to go to in my lifetime, and these are the countries where my chosen lifestyle is punishable by death. Happy June. These are maps that I just find very funny and informative at the same time. Yeah. So my story of research, I trained in the UK as a junior doctor, primarily in A&E and intensive care. I then had a chance to move to Sri Lanka and South Asia and work over the pandemic as a regional trial coordinator and monitor for REMAP-CAP, which we've heard a lot about, and Megarox, primarily working in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, and Nepal. And through the experiences of trying to set up these pragmatic critical care trials in South Asian countries, we experienced a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. And so I started a PhD to try and find some solutions to those problems as experienced by my South Asian colleagues to try and mitigate that. So worked very closely with my Pakistani boss, Professor Hashmi, as well as with colleagues in the Nepal Intensive Care Research Foundation and the Indian Registry of Intensive Care, who do fantastic work in this field. I've been really radicalized through this process to be an advocate for democratizing research and pretty much talking about what we're all saying here, which is that we would like to see research embedded into routine clinical care. If it becomes the responsibility of everybody, we also get buy-in and address questions that are important and actually change practice as well. And I have a lot of feelings about this, but I thought that for the purposes of today, I should try and somehow structure those feelings. And so I recently read this brilliant systematic review on stakeholder views of working in clinical trials in low and middle income countries. It is focused on pediatric trials, but I think the lessons learned are very applicable in a lot of settings. They had 5 main themes that they highlighted in their paper, and so I'm going to take each of them in turn, share a couple of my feelings about them, which will hopefully give us some food for thought and discussion slash either at the panel discussion or over a pint later. The first one was the importance and centrality of community engagement. And now I take that very much to mean building, trusting, authentic partnerships, symmetrical, equitable relationships, not only with patients and public members who we're trying to serve with our research, but also with our partners in the Global South. There's a lot of well-documented history of extractive practices of going into low and middle income countries, taking data out and leaving very little behind, a lot of helicoptering in and out. There's a lot of mistrust, there's a lot of misconceptions, and practices like the CIA using polio vaccination campaigns as surveillance systems don't help in giving confidence of the public to health and research initiatives that are international. So I think a very core component is spending the time, energy, and effort to build those relationships over time, and that requires some personal investment. So I personally have spent, about 5 to 6 months every year for the past 5 years in low and middle income countries, getting to know my collaborating partners. Because I don't think you can do this kind of work if you don't understand where you are working. And I have come across a lot of situations where huge plans have been made for international collaborators to come to that country. Lots of changes have been made to accommodate for those needs, and the plans have been cancelled at the last minute, which is hugely disrespectful. And these are the words of some of my colleagues, if they can't even come to my country, how dare they use the words partnership or collaboration? In the picture here, there's the animated character, which is Arisha Hussaini, my work wife from Pakistan, and the patient and public involvement and engagement group that Dr. Madiha was talking about earlier. So we set that up to increase community engagement very, very clearly, but I think that goes into engaging with physicians and researchers as well. The second theme was about understanding and contending with power differentials. So I take Pakistan as an example because that is where I spend most of my time and where I think those social hierarchies are most evident. I would say that those are also present in the United Kingdom, Canada, Ireland, based on socioeconomic backgrounds. But again, I think it's very obvious, particularly for a foreign person when you go and see this. So I have a lot of status in Pakistan as a white male and a doctor. I lose points because I'm in my 30s and I am single. So people don't respect me for it. They think there's something wrong if I'm not already married. And because I'm an atheist, I also lose points on that account. And we acknowledge these power differentials and kind of perceptions. So I am used at times as the white boy to give credibility to people and open doors to conversations that otherwise wouldn't be able to happen. And again, we have a lot of conversations very honestly with my collaborators on whether my presence is going to be helpful or hindering for specific circumstances because of the perceptions. I'm not here arguing that everywhere has to be completely equal, but I think an awareness of these and an open and honest dialogue about it is very, very essential. There's also a lot of personal moral distress that comes from the fact that I work with someone like Arisha, who I think is much more capable and more intelligent than I am, who doesn't have the same opportunities and doesn't have the same career trajectory that I do, and spending countless of sleepless nights trying to figure out how to do that and how to address that as a PhD student who doesn't necessarily have the power to actually change this circumstance. And contending with those feelings is very real. The third theme is about cognizance of vulnerability and poverty and things that you will be exposed to if you go to many parts of the world. And I think a lot of people think that my life is this: beaches in Rio, going to beautiful cultural sites, jet setting around the world, and all of those things, which is what I put on my Instagram. So it's fair that people think that that's the case. But the reality is a little bit more complex, and there's a lot that happens that I don't post very publicly for obvious reasons, including, for example, this bomb blast that happened outside of Karachi airport 2.5 hours before I landed to the airport, which was a terrorist attack targeting Chinese workers. Long, complex history, but of course my mother wasn't particularly thrilled to hear about this and me being in that environment, and that's just part of the reality. I was in Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis, which of course is a very scary time, and I think being prepared for that reality is important. And so we don't end up in situations where you cancel your trips because suddenly you realize you can't handle it. And I think one of the realities, again, of working is that I have been followed by secret police in Pakistan and tailed to see what I'm up to and monitored to keep me safe, to make sure that I don't get harmed in an area with Taliban operators. But then it also involves things like being any time I go through the USA, I get pulled in for a random discussion with a CIA agent for about 45 minutes. The fourth theme is about advocating for fair distribution of benefits. This goes into kind of the democracy side of things, and realization that, the inequities are so vast and they need bold action and actual, to address them very openly and directly. So in many parts of this PhD journey and my work, I have given up personal career opportunities or authorship or presenting opportunities, funding opportunities, all of those, in order to allow those opportunities to be available to some other people. And I do think that there's a lot of and if I can do that as a PhD student, I think there's a lot more than some of our more senior colleagues who have a lot of prestige could be doing in terms of giving up some of their well-earned power for the benefit of others. And here's Saima, one of our patient partners, who's now become very famous in the critical care research community for creating beautiful animated films on critical care. And a final comment on translating research into the local context and understanding and appreciating local customs and culture in a way that having humility for it and understanding that the way you experience the world is not how everyone experiences the world, and your views and values and viewpoints are not shared by everyone. The big thing here is my chosen lifestyle that I cannot be cured of, and it being punishable by death in a lot of countries. It causes me a lot of personal grief and reflection, having to consider my own personal safety in going into the countries if I don't know the country well enough. I now feel very comfortable, for example, going to Pakistan, but I can't say that that was the case when I first started. And the real distress and shame that I feel about getting to know people really well, going to their weddings, their Eid celebration, all of those things, but not being able to answer the question, do I have a partner and who are they, and sharing that side of my life with everyone. Again, not a critique of any country, but a reality of the kinds of dilemmas that you may be faced with if you do this work. But I love what I do. There's an opportunity cost to everything that we do in life and in work. I choose to spend my time this way. It gives me a lot of meaning. I am a curious person by nature. I love learning about different places and cultures. And so I'm very grateful for all the opportunities and the collaborations that I do have And here's an actual picture of Arisha, not an animated one, on Valentine's Day this year. Thank you very much.